My jealous stepsister always envied everything I had, but I never imagined she'd go as far as sleeping with my husband and stealing the life I built. Now, she has the audacity to invite me to her wedding and ask for my blessing. Instead of crumbling, I decided to get the ultimate revenge, one that would leave her regretting every single betrayal. My husband Jerry, 52, and I, 48, had been together for nearly 12 years and married for 10. In the early days, everything was blissful, each moment filled with joy, laughter, dreams, and all those small things that deepened our love. We were a team, facing life side by side, our smiles contagious and our days brighter together. Year after year, we celebrated our love with cozy Sundays and impromptu date nights that made everything feel just right. Life was simple, and we cherished every moment. Then, out of nowhere, things began to shift. Our date nights turned tense, and the carefree laughter faded. I started noticing that Jerry was increasingly glued to his phone instead of being with me. The lighthearted vibe of our evenings was replaced by an uneasy silence, and I felt our happiness slowly slipping away. The closeness we once shared was replaced by a growing distance that seemed impossible to mend. I began to suspect Jerry might be having an affair. Late-night phone calls and mysterious messages became too frequent to ignore. I questioned his odd behavior, the way he seemed distant even when we were together. Yet, Jerry brushed off my concerns, insisting I was overreacting and that he was simply busy with work. Deep down, though, I knew something was off. One Friday evening, I planned to surprise Jerry with a dinner date, hoping to reignite our connection. I eagerly headed to his office to pick him up, dreaming of a night filled with warmth and laughter. But my excitement quickly turned to disappointment when I received a message saying he had to work late due to an overwhelming workload. I sighed, accepting the change without telling him I was waiting downstairs. Just as I was about to leave, I saw Jerry exiting his office, a clear contradiction to his earlier message. Confused, I watched him get into his car and drive off. My curiosity won, and I decided to follow him. Little did I know that what I was about to witness would shatter me. I trailed him until he pulled into a bar. I couldn't understand why he was there or why he had lied about being swamped at work. As I discreetly observed, my worst fear became real. He was meeting a woman. Frozen in shock, I noticed that her back looked strangely familiar. The mystery woman then turned and sat in front of him, and I stared in disbelief as I realized it was my stepsister, Karen. My legs nearly gave out, and I almost collapsed right there at the bar. Hidden from view, I watched as Jerry and Karen held hands and smiled at each other warmly. The realization hit me like a punch in the gut. I felt overwhelmed by betrayal and disgust, unsure how to process the depth of his deception. I left the bar quietly, ensuring that Jerry didn't see me. That night turned out to be the hardest night of my life. I don't think I have ever cried as much since my dog passed away last year. The pain was excruciating, knowing the person I planned to spend my life with was cheating on me with my very own stepsister. For a bit of background, my parents divorced when I was very young, and my mom remarried a man named Harry, who had a daughter, Karen, from his previous marriage. At first, Karen and I got along despite our 4-year age gap. But over time, I began to notice her talent for manipulation. She had an uncanny ability to twist any situation in her favor, whether it was lying to our parents to avoid punishment or deceiving strangers without a second thought. Somehow, Karen was always jealous of me, even though we both came from broken homes. No matter how hard I tried, I could never earn her genuine affection. As we grew up and headed off to college, I secured a full-ride scholarship and enjoyed exploring new friendships, classes, and the freedom of youth. I started coming home less frequently, and eventually, our interactions dwindled to occasional family events. Even when I kept my distance, Karen continued to make cutting, subtle comments about my appearance whenever we were alone, remarks about my clothing, or sly suggestions that I should hit the gym more often. Her words were clearly designed to chip away at my confidence, but I tried my best to ignore them. Moreover, she often acted overly friendly with Jerry, who, back then, was my boyfriend. She'd comment that he deserved someone more attractive or praise his gym photos. I remember how Jerry would blush and look uncomfortable. I chalked it up to Karen being her usual self, flirtatious with everyone I dated and introduced to my family. After witnessing them together at the bar that night, it became painfully clear that this had been happening for a while. They looked comfortable and intimate, as if nothing was wrong. When Jerry finally returned that night, I pretended to be asleep. He reeked of whiskey and sweat, making no effort to hide his betrayal. His bold, unapologetic behavior hinted at a growing arrogance, as if he believed he could simply get away with it all. I stayed awake the entire night, lost in thoughts about my next move. In the early morning, before Jerry awoke, I quietly took his phone from our bedroom and began scrolling through his messages, calls, emails, and photos, meticulously documenting everything by snapping pictures with my own phone. Once Jerry left for work, I drove to my mom's house, knowing she was the only one who could offer comfort. With my stepdad at work, I finally had the privacy to reveal the painful truth. When I told my mom about Jerry's affair with Karen, she was as shocked as I was. She nearly couldn't believe me until I showed her the evidence. Outraged, she couldn't fathom how Jerry and Karen could commit such a despicable act. True to form, my mom immediately began planning to confront them in front of the family. Considering she had always treated Karen as her own daughter, the betrayal cut even deeper. We just couldn't understand how my own stepsister could stab me in the back like that. Together, we devised a plan to host a family dinner at my place that weekend. My mom urged me to keep quiet and not let Jerry know anything about our plan. On the day of the dinner, everyone arrived looking cheerful and polished. We enjoyed dinner together, and as guests sipped their wine, I exchanged a knowing nod with my mom. I clinked my glass to get everyone's attention, thanked them for being there, and announced that I had something important to share, a truth I'd been struggling with for a long time. I asked everyone to watch the projector as I prepared to reveal the painful secret. The room filled with curiosity as family and friends turned their eyes to the screen my mom had set up. Taking a deep breath, I braced myself to expose the truth that had shattered my world. I connected my phone and began scrolling through the photos and texts I'd gathered from my husband's device. The room fell silent as everyone watched the projector. The first image appeared, a picture of Jerry and Karen in a close embrace. Gasps and murmurs swept through the room, and confusion filled every face. "This isn't easy for me," I said steadily, "but you all deserve to know the truth." I continued, "These images and messages prove that my husband, Jerry, and my stepsister, Karen, were having an affair." The room exploded with disbelief, anger, and shock. Eyes widened and jaws dropped as the evidence unfolded before us. My mom's face showed both fury and sorrow, and I felt the tension rise. She stood by me, holding my hand to silently show that she was with me. I kept scrolling through the damning messages, revealing the full extent of the betrayal. With every new piece of evidence, the shock morphed into palpable anger. I turned to face Jerry and Karen, who sat in stunned silence. Jerry's face burned with guilt, while Karen, once so manipulative and cunning, now looked small and exposed. The room vibrated with the collective anger of everyone present. My mom stepped forward, her voice sharp with disappointment. "How could you do this to our family, to your spouse, to your sister?" she demanded, her eyes locking on both of them. My stepdad then looked directly at Karen and asked if everything I showed was true. At that moment, Karen broke down in tears, and other family members began voicing their own disbelief and outrage. Some exchanged glances and shook their heads, while others murmured angry remarks. With the overwhelming evidence and furious reactions around them, Jerry and Karen were left speechless, unable to defend their actions. The room pulsed with the weight of the truth, and even though my heart was heavy, I felt a strange sense of relief. The secret was finally out and the deception exposed. I spoke again, addressing everyone. "I didn't bring you here just to expose them, but also to announce that I will be divorcing Jerry. If Karen wants my husband, then she can have him. I appreciate all your support during this difficult time." As the shock gave way to solidarity, friends and family offered both comfort to me and condemnation for Jerry and Karen. Jerry's face reddened as he walked out in humiliation, and Karen hurried after him, clearly desperate to escape. My mom hugged me, and I broke down in tears. All the pain I'd hidden inside spilled over. In the months following, I became emotionally drained, struggling even to get out of bed. The crushing betrayal, combined with countless tears, left me feeling like a mere shell of who I once was. Sleep became my escape from the harsh reality. I eventually kicked Jerry out as we navigated the divorce, a long and painful journey, but one I needed to end as soon as possible. 2 days ago, after months of legal battles, the court finally granted our separation. I was overjoyed and spent the day with my mom shopping and eating ice cream, the first time in ages that I felt free. That evening, while watching a movie at my mom's, my stepdad entered the room looking upset. When my mom asked what was wrong, he turned to me with concern. Sitting up straight, I asked if something had happened. He inquired if I'd seen Karen's recent Facebook post. I shook my head and opened my phone, searching for her profile. With bated breath, I viewed her latest photo with Jerry. They were smiling lovingly, and she had captioned it, "So happy to be engaged." My breath caught when I noticed she was wearing a ring. I was utterly shocked. My mom, curious and alarmed, snatched the phone from my hand and cried out in disbelief as she realized Karen was indeed marrying Jerry. I can't recall much of what happened next. Overwhelmed by shock and disbelief, I sank back into the couch, my mind racing with a whirlwind of emotions as the room seemed to close in on me. My mom tried to comfort me, but words failed us both. As if that weren't enough, my stepdad received a call from Karen, likely to share her news. I asked him to put her on speaker so I could listen. Nodding, he answered the call. I listened in horror as she gushed over her engagement and her excitement about marrying Jerry. My stepdad then firmly told her, "Karen, what you have done is not only incredibly insensitive and hurtful to your stepsister, but it will affect the entire family." Karen retorted, "I don't understand, Dad. Jerry and I are in love and getting married. What's wrong with celebrating that?" My stepdad responded sternly, "What's wrong is how you handled it. You had an affair and act as if it's acceptable. Your actions have caused deep pain for someone you should consider family. Now you're flaunting your engagement with no thought for the consequences." Hearing his words, I broke down in tears, and my mom tried to console me. Then Karen, realizing my stepdad wasn't alone, asked if I was in the room. After he confirmed I was there, she pleaded to speak with me. My stepdad passed the phone to me, and I asked her if she truly understood what she was getting into. Smirking, she replied that she did, adding that I shouldn't cry over Jerry since our divorce is final, so he's free to marry her now. As if that wasn't enough, Karen dropped another bomb. She claimed that she and Jerry wanted me at their wedding to bless their new life together. I felt a mix of shock, anger, and disbelief. How could they expect me to put on a happy face when my heart was shattered? It all felt like a cruel joke. She even insisted that I deliver a speech at their wedding, a signal that I was accepting of their union. Stunned, I was lost for words. Without missing a beat, my mom snatched the phone back and told Karen that her actions were unforgivable, a new low for our family. In response, Karen defiantly argued that she and Jerry were in love and that only she could make him happy, demanding that the family accept their relationship. I left my parents to handle Karen and retreated to the guest bedroom, where I locked myself in and cried. I don't remember much of that night. The next morning, I woke with a burning mix of anger and determination. Karen's audacity ignited a fire in me. Instead of letting this revelation destroy me, I decided to take control. I wouldn't allow them to steal my happiness or peace of mind. A plan began forming in my head. I opened my laptop and scrolled through her social media profiles, examining every picture she had ever posted. Finally, I found what I was looking for. I then called a family meeting and laid out my plan. I would attend Karen and Jerry's engagement party, but not by myself. I planned to bring along a very special +1. Without Jerry and Karen knowing, I casually told my mom that I'd be going with none other than her ex from college, Ron. Ron was allegedly the great love of my stepsister's life. She even had a tattoo of his name from their dating days. They had a messy breakup, and I knew she'd be shocked to see me arm in arm with her former flame. My mom's eyes widened in realization, and I grinned mischievously. She gave me a subtle nod, confirming she understood my plan. Meanwhile, my stepdad warned me that this might go too far and urged me not to ruin my sister's wedding. So, Reddit, am I the bad guy for bringing my stepsister's ex to her wedding after she slept with my husband and ended up marrying him? Update 1. It's been a few days since I last updated my story. Thanks for all your comments. I'm surprised so many of you get and support my petty actions. I admit, I initially wanted to take the high road, but seeing Karen post more and more engagement photos with Jerry solidified my plan. I put everything in motion. I sent Ron a friend request on Facebook. To my surprise, he accepted and even messaged back. I didn't hold back. I told him exactly who I was, that I'm Karen's stepsister, and that her soon-to-be husband was once her boyfriend. I laid out my plan to invite him as my +1 to their wedding. He was intrigued and asked why I was reaching out, so I explained everything, how Karen had cheated on me with my husband and was now marrying him, and that I wanted to make her feel the same sting she gave me. After hearing it all, Ron agreed to come with me. I can't wait to see the look on Karen and Jerry's faces when they spot me at the wedding with Ron. My stepdad has no clue I'm bringing Ron, even after he tried to talk me out of it. I'm keeping this under wraps until the wedding day, when I'll fill you in on what happens next. Update 2. A month has passed since my last update, and a lot has happened. I did indeed take Ron with me to the wedding. On the big day, I put on an outfit that screamed confidence and walked into the venue with Ron by my side. Jerry's eyes went wide the moment he saw us together. He must have immediately recognized Ron as Karen's ex. We ignored his shocked expression as we headed to our seats. Jerry approached me and, with barely contained anger, whispered why I was there with Karen's ex. I just smiled, knowing he couldn't cause a scene in front of everyone. Reluctantly, he retreated back to the aisle, still glaring at me. When the bride made her entrance, everyone stood up as Karen, glowing in her bridal look, walked in with my stepdad. She spotted me among the guests and gave a triumphant smile, which I returned with a smirk to hide my vulnerability. Then her eyes landed on Ron standing next to me, and she froze. The music played on, and my stepdad urged her to continue, but Karen couldn't tear her eyes away from us. I kept my head high, calm and composed, as my stepdad noticed her stare and must have sensed what was going on. The tension in the room was palpable, with every guest watching intently. Karen stormed toward us, stopping right in front of me, her face a mix of anger and disbelief. Congratulations, Karen, I said coolly. I'm genuinely happy for you both. What the hell is this? She snapped venomously. I met her glare without flinching. This, Karen, is my +1, I replied. With a hint of satisfaction, I added, meet Ron. You remember him from college, right? Or should I remind you of that tattoo on your hand? I reveled in the shock on her face. Ron stepped forward calmly. Hey, Karen, it's good to see you after all these years. We thought we'd share in the joy of your special day, he said, refusing to escalate the tension. Joy? You call this joy? You're ruining everything. Karen shouted, her voice cutting through the chatter. The room fell silent as guests exchanged shocked glances and murmurs. Keeping my composure, I responded, Karen, you invited me to your wedding with Jerry, so I figured I'd return the favor by bringing along your ex, Ron. The room buzzed with whispers and gasps as everyone tried to process the drama. Karen's eyes narrowed, clearly not expecting such a bold move. Ron, still calm, added, we're just here to celebrate your happiness, Karen. No need to turn this into a scene. Celebrate my happiness? How can you even be with someone like her? Are you dating her now? Karen scoffed. I simply smiled and shrugged nonchalantly. Like I said, you invited me. I'm just here to honor that invitation and wish you and Jerry a lifetime of happiness. Whatever happens between Ron and me isn't your concern, especially with your wedding day at hand. As tension mounted, Karen shot an angry look at Jerry, who rushed down the aisle trying to pull her away from the scene. Karen shoved him aside and then hurled her bouquet across the room. The bouquet soared, leaving a trail of petals before crashing on the floor. Ignoring the shocked gasps, Karen stormed out of the venue, her gown trailing dramatically behind her. The door slammed, leaving disbelief in its wake. Guests exchanged confused looks, some offering awkward smiles while others shifted uncomfortably. The atmosphere, once full of celebration, now hung heavy with tension and uncertainty. Jerry glared at me and opened his mouth to yell, but my mom firmly silenced him, reminding him of all he'd put me through. With a smirk, I whispered to Ron that it was time to leave, and he nodded. The room erupted into a whirlwind of reactions, shock, anger, and hushed conversations. I exited with my head held high, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. The world had witnessed my pain, my strength, and my determination to rise above a broken marriage. I don't care if people say I went too far, I never cheated behind anyone's back or deliberately broke a marriage. I simply gave my stepsister a taste of her own medicine. Update 3. I'm blown away by everyone's reaction in the few days since my last update. I'm glad most of you understand why I did what I did, though I also see some negative reactions. Honestly, I don't regret a single thing. My stepdad just informed me that Jerry and Karen have officially broken up. Karen refused to go through with the wedding, no matter how much Jerry pleaded. It seemed she might still have lingering feelings for Ron, and seeing him that day probably stirred up those emotions. I'm not one to revel in someone else's pain, but sometimes consequences are the only lessons people learn. Jerry has bombarded me with angry calls and messages, but I've blocked him. My stepdad reprimanded me for what I did at the wedding, and out of respect, I didn't argue with him. My mom suggested I give him some space, and I agreed. Now, I'm focusing on rebuilding my life and finding happiness within myself. I'll be joining therapy, as many have recommended, as I navigate this uncertain chapter. For now, I want to concentrate on personal growth, rediscover my passions, and surround myself only with positive influences.